glean a little in your proposals or for your proposals. Joining me today, my name is Mallory Price, and I'll be moderating today. Erin, Shipley's partner for e-learning and communications. Microsoft's global purpose at Shipley. So thank you all of our panelists for joining me today and for imparting your wisdom. If you have any questions during this webinar, please type them into the questions tab of your control panel, and we will get to as many as we can. So on the agenda today, we have a few things. So we will talk about best practice proposal tricks. We actually surveyed about 300 proposal professionals to see what their tricks and their knowledge as well. We will talk about some tools that help during proposal development, such as efficiency, and things. And before I forget, we will have a treat for all of you attending live on this webinar. So stay tuned till the very last slide, because only those who are attending live will share on to, but the survey, before I forget to talk about that. Said. The section leads and writers every day. Go into SharePoint frequently and provide
we underlined every day because this person, everyday touch point with every contributor without connecting puts us at risk as a proposal.
Possible, allocate one day before SMEs, volume leads to make sure the draft is ready for prime time. So Greg,
yeah, this idea, but I'm intrigued by reading it out loud to see how it sounds is fascinating to me. And on your proposal content if you do this. And so I appreciate whoever sort of red team, and we let others start reviewing and trying to improve our material, our content of our proposal. This is a great idea. You know, read it out loud, even to yourself. Review the graphics and make sure we're telling the story, that we're being compelling. So I really liked this tip.
Yeah, absolutely. I like this one too. As a writer, I often try to read my work aloud, because if it's tripping you up while you're speaking, then it could be tripping up your evaluators while they're trying to read it.
Great point. Yep.
All right, number 3, maintain strict control of the proposal outline. The RFP defines what story the buyer wants. Your story, this one a little bit. Tell us a little bit more.
Sure. So I think this is a great tip. I think and anyone that's run a proposal knows it is hard to keep control sometimes with so many contributors and intelligent teams that have strong opinions, but it's important to stick to the outline established by the customer in the RFP instructions. And one practical way of doing this is our assignment tracking tool. And this is something we do at Microsoft in our kind of best practice. Is that's what we use for our daily stand-up is, you know, we advise all the contributors. They're responsible for updating it at the end of each day. And it has the percentage, which is color-coded in kind of this red light, green light, well, stoplight chart, red, yellow, green. That really keeps people on track. No one wants to see red next to their name, and they want to get out of the yellow as fast as, you know, specifically to the response, which is tied back to the RFP. So that goes back to that previous idea tip of, you know, you need to touch base every day. And I agree, even on a small proposal, just to have some accountability and to maintain that control.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly. Member of the proposal team and ensure an use on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is very important as people to do either several different tasks or maybe tasks that aren't a good fit. Format the proposal or asking your graphic, just making sure that you know everyone on your team and their skills, and really having them work on what they work on best will lead you to the best end result. But I think the second part of this that they don't quite mention is that also asking someone to do two things at once can also hurt you. So same thing, asking someone to proofread and format at the same time, one of those is going to not turn out as well as you want. So giving people one task at a time and making sure it's something that they that matches their skill set.
Awesome. Thanks, Paige. Okay, number 5. For any contributors falling behind, conversations are more effective than group updates can open about the issues. 2, encouragement is an important part of being a good proposal manager. Cheer on the contributors and recognize those who put in extra effort by posting on a shared site or emailing their manager. So sometimes a proposal manager needs to be a coach and a cheerleader. Often those criticisms should be done one-on-one instead of in front of a group, and praise for individuals can be done in front of a group. I think that just helps morale a lot and is really important for a proposal manager. Brad, do you have any other comments on this number 5?
Yeah, I agree, Mallory. And just this gets to some of the interpersonal side of being a proposal manager and a really good proposal manager. We have to be very good at the project management piece, the tasks, the schedules, but we also have to be, like Mallory said, that was a great, you call it coach and mentor, and we shouldn't be criticizing team members publicly if something has gone wrong or they're missing deadlines. We don't want to embarrass anybody. So, you know, critique and give criticism in private and give praise and recognition publicly is kind of the idea that we've heard a lot of, and I endorse that. Keeping the team intact and morale high is important.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, number 6, and here's where we get into some that are more directed towards proposal writers. Don't write when you're tired, but then when are we ever not tired? Pick up your high performance part of the day to write important things like executive summaries. So Paige, can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on this number 6?
Yeah, definitely. This made me laugh too. It's true that when we're working up against a big deadline and have a huge proposal, it's hard to find a time when you aren't tired and are not staying up late trying to make it happen. But most people should know by now, as they're professionals in writing proposals, when they are most effective and efficient. And even if we're doing other tasks like formatting or checking compliance and making sure we're doing, checking off these other tasks we have, if we can wait and do our writing during the time of the day when we're at our best, that's going to result in the best writing. So for some people that might be very first thing in the morning, others it could be after lunch, others it could be late at night. And if we have at any wiggle room at all in the deadline to be able to move the schedule so that we can be writing during those high performance times, we're going to end up in with a better result, but also we're going to be more efficient because we'll be in the zone and doing our best work. So making sure that you know when you're most effective and you know when your team is most effective, and try to fit the schedule around it so that you can do your good writing at that time will really make you more efficient in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you, Paige.
Mallory, there's been a couple questions. Do you mind if I
Of course, please.
interrupt here? A couple questions that have come in, and maybe now is a good point to address a few. I hope by now we had it looks like there were some audio glitches early, so I hope we're on track now and it's better. It looks like it is from your comments. We will be posting these slides, but one of the questions is, where can we find these slides? We'll post those after the webinar on our website. If you go under resources and then webinars, you'll see a PDF copy of these slides, so you'll be able to go back and take a look at these. And then the other, let's see, there's a question here. Do agencies prefer custom graphic covers on proposals? Was a question submitted, and I'm gonna say most do. The proposal cover, the old adage, you can tell I don't know how it goes, tell a book by its cover.
Judge a book by its cover.
I say you can judge a book by its cover, and customizing and tailoring a proposal cover to a specific agency and their mission, if possible, is actually a real possible discriminator. So the answer to that, I would say, is yes. And thank you for those of you that are submitting questions. We appreciate that. Okay, Mallory.
Okay, so number 7. Be responsive. Address each requirement and derived requirement from the RFP. Address hidden needs. Track compliance and responsiveness to document specific proposal elements that address the requirements, needs, and underlying issues. Brad, can you talk to this one a little bit?
Yeah, there's not much else to add here, really.
Kind of says it all.
But yeah, compliance, of course, is checking the box, make sure we answer the mail. Responsiveness is going to those underlying, maybe unwritten needs and issues and requirements that we've learned about during the sales process or the capture phase. So compliance and responsiveness, sometimes we mix those terms up. They are different. We've got to do both. If we're going to really have a better chance to win and improve our P-win on a proposal, we've got to know about and address those underlying hidden needs and be responsive.
Right. Okay, so we did receive a question kind of about that criticism one we talked about, and also Kimberly's comment. So Brad, I'll have you address this one, and maybe Kimberly, you can jump in as well. So it says, if we are sending out a daily progress report, it disappeared on me, hold on a second. If we are sending out a daily progress report with traffic lights, as Kimberly mentioned, is that not a public way of indirectly showing criticism?
I'd say no, that's a status report. So yeah, it is a public way of saying that someone's behind and someone's not meeting their deadlines, but it's not a criticism of their work, their approach, or anything. So yeah, I mean, technically that could embarrass someone, but we have to be able to, you know, manage what we're measuring, and we have to measure progress.
Yes, and so a progress report is basically just kind of stating the facts of,
Right.
of the status, basically.
Yeah. Kimberly, anything you'd add?
No, I agree. It's a status. It's a factual statement. It's not attaching any, you know, criticism, and it's a necessity. I mean, it's our job, right? If your name's next to it, you have a deliverable.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, number 8. Thoroughly understand the proposal themes, discriminators, ghosts, and features and benefits. Kimberly, can you tell us more about this one?
Sure. So we all know the importance of having, you know, clear win themes and you know, describing features and the corresponding benefits. If you're working with a capture manager on a deal, that should come out of capture. But depending on the size of the deal and your organization, you don't always have that luxury. So I would suggest that if you don't already, you just become familiar with running a win theme workshop yourself as a proposal manager or proposal coordinator even, because if a deal lands and there's no win themes coming through from sales or capture, you can take an hour or two and conduct a quick workshop with your team to try and draw out some of that information from the team and those on the team that know the competition and that know the customer the best, and that is a good way to get the direction if it's not coming, you know, the right way, which is through capture and sales on the front end. And then another tip when I was looking at this one is I thought, you know, when you're prompting your SMEs to tie their features back to benefits, I think a really good question to get in their heads is, so what? So what is the value of this feature to the customer? And a lot of times when I'm reviewing a proposal, I will in the comment box, you know, just say, this is a great feature. Question, is this unique to Microsoft? Another question, what is the bottom line value to customer X? And kind of prompting those comments in that way, in a review, seems to really help some of the technical people start thinking more strategically, because they're really good at describing the what, the features, and, you know, kind of prompting them, you know, with the question, so what, helps them articulate the benefit and make the response stronger.
Thanks, Kimberly. All right, number 9, trick. Summarize your rationale in a little "why us" call-out box with 3 or more bullets.
Sounds good.
It sounds great. So, Paige, can you tell us a little more about this "why us"?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this kind of builds on what Kimberly was just saying as well on the so what. So not only do we want to say, so what, why does it matter, but why us? Why are we the best ones to provide that? And I love this idea of having a call out box with just a few bullets. So you're not creating a whole other section to summarize your rationale, but you're being really concise about this is our main value proposition. This is what we bring to the table. And I think when you've got something like that, like a call out box with just a few bullets, that really makes it easier on the evaluators, because when they're going in and comparing you to other agencies, other vendors, they can use this rationale to explain why it should be you, and can say that they're explaining to us exactly why they're the best fit, and you're making their job as evaluators easier when you can concisely explain to them why your solution is best. So I think this is a great trick.
Awesome, thank you. I am all for making things easier for the reader and the evaluator. I think it makes a big difference. All right, number 10. If you're not an SME, but are working with an SME on a section, take a few minutes to explain the context, including, for example, how this portion fits into the whole and perhaps how source selection works. Kimberly, can you tell us more about this one?
Sure. I think key to this big picture is always tying back to the win themes. That's just so critical in establishing and kicking off any kind of proposal pursuit. So I think bringing your SME back to that established vision, the big picture of what the win themes we're tying back to are, is critical. And then also, I think going through storyboarding is really helpful because it helps each SME drill down to how those win themes apply to their specific sections. So, you know, Shipley has a great methodology for storyboarding, which is awesome. And if you can train your team or they're trained in Shipley methodology and you can always make sure you're doing the storyboarding that way, that's great. If you're in more of a time crunch or you have a team that's not, you're trying to get spun up on the right way to do storyboarding, you can do kind of a storyboarding light exercise where you have just a few boxes that you can outline for their section where you want them to tie back to the big picture. So for their specific section, maybe it's on testing, you know, what are the key solution features? What are the key benefits? You know, what are the risks that you're trying to mitigate? You can pick kind of your storyboard light categories and do a simple storyboard exercising as a team or individually if you have a writer that's, or a SME that's struggling to write their section.
I just add, Kimberly, too, this idea of this helping the technical team understand source selection and how that works. It's not commonly known, you know, how a proposal is evaluated, and so sometimes it's on us as proposal writers, proposal managers, to explain that to the technical team. I was at a APMP conference just last week, and one of the actual breakout, or one of the sessions, was on this very topic of making sure we're creating the proposal, writing the proposal from the source selection point of view. And so that just, whoever made this suggestion on the survey was right on. It really helps when people understand how the winner is going to be picked.
Awesome, thank you both. So we did just receive a question coming back to that Why Us page that you discussed, so I'm going to pose this question to you. In situations where the client prescribes a certain format for the response, what are some ways we can infuse the Why Us into our response?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a call out if you're stuck to a certain format. In terms of literal formatting, the look and feel, but you can also just touch on the Why Us, first of all, throughout. You can, I mean, that's a great thing to be thinking about as you're writing each part, but even with a strict format of answer this question, you know, in this this look and feel, you can still lead with that. So even if that is just your first paragraph and you still pull it out into bullets to say this is why we should be chosen, I think you can still implement that even if you're trying to fit all your answers into specific boxes, as it were, because I think the overall tip here is that you want to make it easier on the reader. And so if even if that's your full response is answering Why Us, I think that's worth it to implement that into how you're responding and giving that up front versus diving right into the details of your solution, making sure that you pause for a second and give them your highest level value proposition very first.
Awesome, thank you, Paige.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we are going to get into some of the traps that we can often fall into, judging by our little mouse trap there on the left. Okay, for pink and red team reviews, don't assume reviewers know what to do or not to do. Orient the reviewers to your specific expectations. Have them focus on what improvements are needed to achieve the highest possible score based on RFP instructions and the details of the selection factors or sub-factors. Brad, can you talk to this one a little bit more?
Gladly, because this is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Some of us tend to fall into the trap of kind of going with a throw it over the wall approach, throw it over the wall mentality when it comes to reviews. And we say, we'll just kick it over to the red team and see what they come up with. And we don't give instructions, we don't let them know what we expect back, or we don't give them tools or guidelines, and it becomes kind of actually a waste of resources and time. So boy, whoever submitted this, I love it. You know, we can't just assume that people were asking to try to improve our readability, our scoreability, the quality of our proposal. We can't assume that they know what we expect and how to do it. We have to, using your words, Mallory, we have to be the coach and mentor, and not just toss it over the wall to the next person.
Great, thank you. All right, number 12, another trap to avoid. Neglecting the set strict rules on who's contributing what, when, and how. For example, sometimes contributors try to continue work during a red team review, creating an unhelpful shadow version of this section. Kimberly, can you tell us a little bit more about this one, your thoughts and feelings on how this goes?
Sure. I think the core of this one really goes back to version control. So I think you need to be very clear that there's a single master draft and set, very clear rules up front. If you're, that's always the best, rather than, of course, them passing around different versions on email or things like that. So having very clear version control rules throughout the process. And then when you get to red team, we often use the features in Word to lock track changes on. No one can turn it off without the password. Password protect the master draft if you're going to freeze that during red team and let red team reviewers kind of edit their own and then come back. But I would encourage you to become familiar with the different lockdown features within Word so that you can maintain the kind of control you want, and it helps so much with these pop-up shadow versions when you get to crunch time and these fast turns where you've got to have things going on in parallel, but you also need to maintain version control.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we did receive another question, and Brad, I'm going to pose this one to you. It says, I always have the same folks reviewing proposals. Any suggestions for keeping them from just rubber stamping and get them to pay attention to nuances of each proposal, even if they seem similar on the surface?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it goes back to just coaching them. But yeah, people can become, I hate to use this word, but bored if a lot of our proposals have very similar content because we're bidding the same solutions to different customers. So I think the key here would be to let the reviewers know how we're trying to discriminate in the proposal. If we tell them that up front and ask them to look for that and see if it's crystal clear to them, because each proposal should be slightly different in the way we're addressing competitors or a tailored solution. So if we specify, don't just read it to read it, but would you see if you can identify our true discriminators or differentiators in this proposal? That might help. That's a great question. We need to make sure people stay fresh and don't just gloss over.
Sure. Which can be hard as an editor when a lot of things look similar. So yeah. Those are some great points, Brad. Thank you. All right, number 13, our last trap. 1, thinking there is enough time. 2, not testing the submission method prior to delivery. 3, fully trusting the tools and not having backup copies of every working file. Paige, can you talk to this lucky number 13 for us?
Yeah, definitely. I think, bottom line here, proposals are not the time to procrastinate, and we know that they've got sometimes near impossible deadlines, and so we want to use every last minute that we can. But I'm sure everyone on this call has horror stories of leaving it to the last minute and then finding out that you can't get it shipped out at that time, or the portal changed, or whatever the case might be. And I think it's just, I absolutely agree with this, that we need to test these things ahead of time, make sure that we have backup copies and plans. If one falls through, what's our backup plan on that? And just making sure that we're thinking all that through really early on and not leaving it to the last minute. I have one quick horror story of a proposal that was due on a submission, or a proposal that was due up on a portal, and we'd gotten all the questions answered, but no one realized that once you answered all the questions and clicked next, there was a whole new set of questions. So leaving it to the last minute could mean that you're missing out on half of the proposal. It's a scary thought. So just making sure that you're testing those things early on, have backup plans and copies, files, so that even if something goes wrong, you've got a little buffer time there to readjust, fix it, and still submit a good compliant proposal.
Awesome, thanks, Paige. That definitely sounds like a horror story to me. Okay. So some favorite tools from our survey results. So now we're going to have the panel, Brad, Kimberly, and Paige, briefly share some thoughts on some of these tools. And just so you know, we're not endorsing these tools, just simply sharing to help you in reviewing tools that might help you. So we're just talking about them, not endorsing them. Just want to reiterate that. Yeah, so Paige, I am going to turn this slide over to you.
Okay, great. Yeah, Brad asked me to give some of my favorite word tips, and it kind of made me laugh because one of them that I was considering mentioning was locking track changes, which Kimberly just mentioned, and it's actually not on my list here. So I'll let all of you go research that if you don't know how to do it yet, but that's a great tip in Word. The first one that I want to mention is one that many of you might already know, and it's old hat for you, but mentioning it anyway, just in case people don't. I think number one tip for using Microsoft Word, especially in these long proposals, is to use styles in Word. So either if you're creating your own styles or using a template that's already within Microsoft Word, by doing this and using the styles for your headings and your different formatting features, then if you need to make a change down the line, you can just modify the style and not have to go through and manually format each piece. So when you have these very long proposals, and if you're using some of it as boilerplate and you get a new proposal that then has new requirements on what your formatting needs to be, it's much easier to make those changes quickly and easily by using styles. So that was my tip number one. Second tip, if you are using your styles, then Microsoft Word will create this navigation outline for you. So if you go to View and Navigation pane, you can quickly see what your different heading levels and sections are. And so this I use all the time for one, cleaning up my styles if I've got some weird maybe things that are heading 2 that should be heading 1. It helps you kind of organize that way, but also just jumping around a large document. So if you need to reference back and navigate around, having this navigation pane open can be really helpful in that way. Third tip, may seem obvious to do spell check on your documents, but I will say it anyway because it's just really good practice to always make sure that you're checking spelling. The other thing that people might not know is that you can actually set the proofing language for your spell check. So if you are working on proposals where maybe you're using UK English versus United States English, you can actually set that proofing language so that Microsoft will help you in that way. Maybe you even have some other language, and that can also work. But if we can advance the slide just one more, I'll show you that if you go to language and set proofing language, this dialog box will open up. And another little tip that's super helpful is every once in a while some text gets selected and this do not check spelling or grammar gets checked. And I have to be honest, I don't know how that happens, but it does. And so one thing you can do is select all the text in your document, come in here to language, set proofing language, and make sure that this is unchecked so that you are checking spelling and grammar for your entire document. Like I said, every once in a while, something will be marked to not get checked, and then you end up with a whole section or paragraph that that could have any number of typos that are not being caught unless you've got another proofreader looking at it. The next tip is using keep with next. So if you've got some odd page breaks, you can kind of see in here in the example on the far right, if you're introducing a bulleted list and then the rest of the bulleted list is on the next page and you want to keep those two together, you can select that, that introductory sentence and go to paragraph and the line and page breaks and select keep with next. And then no matter how, if you add text, remove text, and it moves up or down on the page, those two pieces will always stay together. It'll always keep with next. So again, with long proposal documents, this can be really helpful that even if you're adding stuff above or below, you don't have to worry about manually moving that so that those two pieces always stay together. And the final tip is kind of down in the noise, but this is just kind of a fun one that I like. I'm using our company name as an example. If you've got McKinnon Mulhern and it's got a hyphen in it, so it's breaking across the line. If you want to make sure that your company name, or even more importantly, the organization that you're responding to, their company name doesn't break across lines, you can put Control-Shift, in this case hyphen, or you can also do it with a space so that it never breaks across a line. So one example we had in a proposal was a company who had a product called Digistar 4, and no matter what we did, it seemed like that 4 was always hanging on to the next line, and they were not happy about it because it's the name of their product. They wanted it to always stick together. So being able to put that non-breaking space so that Word sees it as a full word and doesn't try to break it up, it's a small thing, but it can make your proposal look sharper and again, keep it so that you're not doing a lot of manual formatting when you get to the end.
Awesome, Paige, thank you. These are definitely some of my favorite Microsoft Word tips as well, so thank you for sharing those.
Yeah.
All right, and Brad, I am going to turn the next two tools over to you.
Okay. And this will be brief and very high level, but the point of this webinar was to introduce you to tools that were brought forward to us as a result of this survey. So this is a tool that we're a little bit familiar with. Some of you may be very familiar with. It's called RFPIO. And you can see here, this is just a screen capture from their website. You can see across the bottom here where these are three of the main deliverables from this platform, if you will, this service. Import and export content. It serves as a support to your project management activities and team collaboration. So this solution for responding to RFX, RFI, RFP, whatever it is out there. All of these companies provide, of course, free demos. So we encourage you to take a look at any of these tools that might help in your proposal development activity. You know, the term you often hear, we often hear, is proposal automation. We want to automate the process. We want to automate. I've yet to see a platform or service that automates everything. Proposal development is always going to be a human activity. It's going to be driven by us. But there are portions of developing a proposal response or parsing a request for proposal that can certainly be automated and streamlined. And that's what some of these tools are showing you. Now, another one out there that we're a little familiar with is visible thread. And again, these are screen captures. There's a visible thread docs solution that they offer, and it generates compliance matrices in minutes, instantly pinpoints non-compliant content and poor readability. So that's what the visible thread solution does. And then here again, this bullets out, and I'm going to just let you all that are interested go to their website and take a look around. And there you see they offer a free 7-day trial on some of this. But the benefits here: it shreds RFPs and creates compliance matrices. It extracts acronyms, definitions, removes ambiguity and confusion from your content, helps with bid, no bid decisions, helps ensure compliance. So it's a tool worth checking into. So those are a couple, Mallory, that we're a little bit familiar with. And like Mallory said, we're not in the business of endorsing any tool. We're wanting to share for you tools that you might find helpful. And then on Visible Thread, there's one more option they offer, which I do like, and that is this readability tool, where it will actually allow you to go in and create kind of a grade level, if you will, of how you want your proposals to read to the evaluator. You establish the criteria, you establish the levels, and then the software will check your proposal content against those levels and let you know where you're at as far as readability, sentence structure, length, passive, active voice. So just another tool to be aware of, and invite you to check into all of these.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad. All right, moving on to our next tool. Kimberly, can you tell us a little bit more about Perfect It?
Sure. And no, I'm not as familiar with GoToMeeting. Are you in control of animating the slides?
Yes.
Okay. So you go ahead and click through to display. I think there's another half of this slide. But just as an introduction, Perfect It is a nice little find. It's cheap. It's there's a cloud version or a local version, and you can see on the screen, these are kind of some of the things that it's going to help you do: reduce time editing, reduce errors. Let me go on to the next slide because it'll start to explain how it does it. So basically, it's a proofreading software tool, and it goes beyond what Word, the native functionality in Word spelling and grammar checks. So in that drop down, that was the screenshot off their website. Oh, can you go back, Valerie? I'm sorry. These are kind of the areas that it addresses, and within each of these categories, it has anywhere from like 5 to 10 to 15 different checks that it's running on certain on these different categories. So if you'll go to the next one. So here's some of the key benefits. Improving the document quality, it really helps you catch typos that Word spelling and grammar don't at this point. And by running it through, this is like Brad was saying, you want to automate as much of the tediousness of a proposal as you can so that you can focus on the more strategic tasks that will always need kind of that human element, and will need, it frees you up to focus on it. And this on average, it cuts my proofreading time in half on any given document. It also checks, it has a very extensive abbreviation check where it'll tell you if you have abbreviated something but not defined it yet. It goes through this detailed list of things that normally you manually have to do it, and then it automatically extracts all your acronyms and creates the list for you, which is a huge time saver. You can also customize it, so you can input, different words that you need to avoid, or different spelling, scenarios, and so you can input different rules from your company style guide, which is nice. And it's so inexpensive and easy to implement. I think the commercial off-the-shelf price is $70 per year per user, so it's not even a monthly subscription fee. And like I said, it's simple to train on, simple to roll out, and very simple to support. Okay, the next slide just will show you a couple of examples. So this is, and I just grabbed these off their website. So you can see it'll find spelling inconsistencies that normally, a manual proofreader. It will catch embarrassing typos because those are actual words, but not how you don't want those in your proposal. Numbers is a big one. A lot of times you have to manually catch when you're spelling out versus when you're, using the numerals, and the capitalization, also usually a manual task. This will flag all of those for you, so you can fix them case by case. So it flags all of them, and you can override any of their suggestions. Bulleted list, this helps so that you're not mixing punctuation and capitalization. And then, like I mentioned, the abbreviation function and acronym list is really helpful as well. So that gives you kind of a flavor for the type of things that it's checking beyond, the Microsoft Word grammar and spell check. And I think that's the last slide.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly. That sounds like an awesome tool as well. All right, Brad, I am going to give you the Loopio tool.
Here's another piece of automation, a tool that we ought to at least look at if we're looking to streamline our activities, and that is a product, a solution called Loopio. And this, again, these are our public screenshots. You can see better responses start with smarter content management. So this helps in managing your content. If you get a lot of question and answer type proposals where you need to pair up answers with common questions but tailor those, this is something maybe you want to look at. So here's, again, supercharge the RFP and RFI response process across teams. So it is a collaborative tool. Save time answering complex security questions. So this is just an example of one specific area. If your business answers a lot of questions about security and compliance, you can go to this library and this will streamline the process of your response. So Loopio is another tool we ought to look at. And then the final one we really have time to address today, and again, this is high level. This is certainly not all inclusive of all the tools out there, but there's a tool called Grammarly. And Kimberly, have you had a little bit of experience on this? Or?
I have. So I would encourage everyone to go out to the website because their front page has like a live demo that just runs, and it shows you these different type of checks that it comes up. So while Perfected is a proofreading tool focusing on consistency, Grammarly goes beyond that, and it helps you clean up your language and make it more readable. And so it will suggest words or synonyms, or tell you where you have passive voice or where you need a comma, because it's wonderful. And if you just go to the site, their splash page there, you can get a good feel. There's a freemium version, and then there's also different levels of monthly subscription versions available.
Awesome. Well, thank you, all three of you, for sharing some tidbits about these tools. And this is just a small smattering of tools that you'll see. I'm sure there are many more. As someone commented, a lot more proposals are being requested to be submitted in Excel as well. So, yeah. So, make sure and use the tools that work best for you and your company. All right. To summarize, we talked today about fundamentals and how they pay off in proposal development. We asked some experts that have been a tremendous source of tips and tricks and knowledge, and so we thank you for those of you who are on the webinar who did share those tips and tricks with us. Proposal development is a team sport, absolutely. common traps can ruin a good pursuit or proposal, and we went through some of those and had some comments on those as well. And tools can definitely make life easier, but don't be fooled. Try before you buy, and I can definitely agree to that. Make sure you know what you're getting into. And there are lots of resources to help you. For example, APMP, webinars, associations, training, mentors. There are so many ways to improve your writing and your proposal processes. All right, and we did answer several questions. So thank you to those of you who did submit those. You are always welcome to submit those questions during our webinar, so thank you.
Mallory, just real quick, I know we're wrapping up here, but I have a question for Kimberly. Kimberly, I know you work a lot of proposals virtually. In other words, you're not co-located with all of your contributors. Do you find some of these tools and maybe others that we've talked about especially helpful in working virtual proposals, even maybe more so than co-located when you're co-located?
Sure. Just from my experience, of course, I work for Microsoft, so we use Microsoft Teams as our collaboration platform. So working remotely, I mean, it doesn't have to be Teams, but you want to have some kind of, you know, central place that you're storing your documents and sharing. That helps with version control and communication and just makes things more efficient. Also, let's see, just some of these tools that were touched on to help with writing, you know, like Perfected or Grammarly, those can save a lot of time because you can be running those tools on your different versions in parallel while people are manually reviewing as well. So, you know, having those automation tools is really helpful. Not related to remote proposal management, but someone asked about, you know, or made the comment that a lot more proposals are being asked for in Excel. And we find that at Microsoft, a lot of when we're selling the software, not our consulting services, but the actual just product, we get these huge Excel questionnaires that you're talking about. And we have found RFPIO is the solution we're currently using right now for that, and it's a really good fit for those large Excel questionnaires, so that might be worth looking into. But like Brad said, we're not endorsing any tool per se, we're just telling you what we use or what our experience has been, but just wanted to put that out there since it's been a really good find for Microsoft on those large Excel questionnaires.
Awesome, thank you. All right. So this is our next webinar, so we would love to have you join us for that one as well. You can register right on our website, and you will also find a presentation of this webinar on our website as well, so be sure to check that out. And for those of you who have stayed tuned for a treat, we have it for you on the next slide. So for all of you who are attending live, we would like to give you 30 days of access to our new digital proposal guide. And also, I am sending this link to all of you in your questions tab. So hopefully you're seeing that come up as well, and you can click right on that link. So this link will expire on November 1st, so that is Friday, so be sure and redeem it before then. We love sharing our tools with you, and this is one tool that Shipley has, and we're happy to share that with you.
So they have to redeem it by November 1st, but it's good for 30 days.
Yes, it will be good for 30 days, but you will need to redeem and click on this link and use it by November 1st. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Brad, do you have any further comments?
Oh, thank you, Mallory, and thanks to all the others.
Yeah, thank you, Paige and Kimberly. Your wisdom has been awesome. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.